first open down the comments to each one of you, starting to you say Advani on the topic content going abroad, Indian content soaring, and Indian cinema taking the flights. Yeah, that's the size.
So Indian content going abroad, we are still not going abroad, right? I mean, Payal Kapadia is one person who's taking us abroad. But yeah, so I mean, once in a while we hear the nominated film from India, which is possibly Lapata Ladies. Last year it was the last show, which we talk about, which is going abroad, right? Sonak possibly wins or wins documentary wins Sundance, or Shruti Talati's has won for Girls Will Be Girls. But really mainstream Indian cinema is not going abroad. Is not crossing over. You have Beat Shekhar before this, Shekhar Kapoor before this. And Mr. Kapoor is possibly one person who has made that transition, right? I mean, and I think that a lot, Ritesh Batra made it with Lunchbox. Irfan actually is really Irfan Khan, who I had the wonderful pleasure of working with in D-Day, is that one actor who basically just, he transitioned, right? But are we going abroad? No, we aren't. We still aren't. So, I mean, we have to. It's very important that we have to, because literally, it's otherwise being very myopic, in my opinion.
Sir, you're Irani here.
Don't they speak about the same thing or something?
I mean, you're opening gaps on the entire issue.
I kind of agree with my dear friend Nikkhil over here. But more than anything else, I think it's important that the industry doesn't need to go abroad. It needs to be that the industry over here should grow in such a way that it should be the focus of abroad, rather than us going and exporting actors or exporting directors abroad. Why is it that our industry should not be in a position for people to say, well, we should be keeping an eye on Indian cinema big time, like Korean cinema or Iranian cinema. I think that's what should be the objective. Yeah. And so the next question is, how does one do that? My solution is a long-term solution. Maybe it's not even a solution. And I think that it all boils down to the power of the writer. We don't pay enough attention, or rather, let me be a little more bold and say we don't pay the writer.
That's a very interesting point you make. I'm sorry to interject, but I was interviewing Salim Javed recently, and Mr. Salim had this specific point to make again and again, that we're not having good plots. That's because we don't value the story enough.
We don't value the storyteller enough.
Almost.
The story is fine. We don't value the storyteller enough. On the in the same token, I think the storyteller should work hard enough to be valued also. You can't say I'm a storyteller, I'm not getting enough respect and enough money. You've got to be worthy of that respect and money. I'm happy to say last night in Mumbai, I was hoping that we could do something like this over here, maybe next year. My organization, which is a free organization, it's called Spiral Bow. It's for anyone who wants to be a writer joins in, and we've done 758 sessions since the pandemic, which I've conducted myself personally on screenwriting. And yesterday we had a session of 300 students and industry directors and writers who attended. And I flew down Alex Dinelaris, the writer of Birdman, who conducted a 6-hour workshop. And I think that should be encouraged, that should be funded, that should be sponsored. And this is done by us, an organization that spends private funding, no funding. You know what I mean? And I think as long as you don't spawn a generation of writers, you will not have a generation of filmmakers. Simple.
So, to be very honest about all this, we started with Shekhar, and we talked about Bandit Queen. It's a film that he and I produced for, and he directed. It was conceived of in 1991 and produced in 1992, released in 1994. That's 30 years ago. It's not yesterday. So the last time a film we discussing traveled was there. So, no, we haven't crossed over. We haven't actually done anything of the sort. Coming to Boman, your comment is absolutely right. This is something that I also believe it. I mean, I don't believe that they're going to come here. No one's going to come here and make Indian cinemas. There's lots of us. And I think, just as a little interjection, let me tell you, we make just the Hindi film industry, which I know a little more than the rest of it, censors 2,000 films a year. I don't think more than 60 of those ever feel the light of a theater. I don't see more than 10 or 15 making it in the so-called big league. It's enough of a dream to cause another 2,000 people to come and dive into the pool, and maybe 60. So it's not, the Indian cinema market is not a Garden of Eden. That is one point. No, but what you said about what you just did is something that I completely and totally believe. In fact, we've now been doing it for 2 years. I actually have been of our own record and being supported by different governments and associations, been running a program called Stories That Travel, trying to find local stories which we believe had some potential to cross over and appeal to the rest of the world. We've done workshops in Dubai. We've done 2 workshops in Spain. We did a masterclass here. We're continuing to do that, maybe Australia, Singapore, back in Spain next year, with the hope that, and this year, for example, the program yielded one film which is almost 90% shot. Another one that's going to start next year. And in this process, find 8 or 9 films, more pile of ideas as it were, that will do it. But otherwise, what Nikkhil says is getting selected to be sent for the foreign language Oscar is not a validation of any kind. I've just been on a jury where I viewed 29 films to try to find the one that should have traveled abroad for this. 1 or 2 have made it in the history of the Oscars. Right? The last Indian film that won before Payal's film that won anything at Cannes was a film called Nicha Nagar, which is 1946, before India was independent. Films like Bandit Queen have been to forums like Directors Fortnight or Uncertain Regard, but in the context of 2,000 a year or 1,500 a year for 50 years, free film is at best an accident, nothing more than that.
I mean, can I ask a question? Sorry. I just want to ask you, when did it become?
When?
I think the fashion design. See, firstly, you must remember, and I promise you, I'm not exaggerating this, that if you have a DVD in your bag and you catch a flight to Nice and you book yourself in a hotel in Cannes and you stream that film in the DVD player in your hotel room, you can with great confidence say that your film's filmed at Cannes. Right. And there is a lot of people who say this. The red carpet is a place to be photographed. But it doesn't matter.
The thing is that as a young filmmaker, as somebody who grew up in the lap of Sudhir Mishra, it used to be, we will one day be in Cannes, right? You work hard for it.
You didn't have to. You should have caught a flight.
That you had taken a DVD.
What he's saying is that maybe the top body through the merit only. Mr. Nayani, now you shake up at a very interesting point there, that 90% of the content that is being viewed in US is probably not through the theatrics, it's through TikTok. In fact, we as the practitioners of news is being consumed through TikTok in the United States, Singapore, and places like that. Not being no more being consumed through any other platform. So, what do you think, the alternative platforms to the theater? Talking about OTT also, because many people say that even that's why it's still very soon. What are the alternative platforms? How do you view that? And how do you think your Indian content can actually take applied the topic of this in those spheres?
No, absolutely. And thank you. We've quietly over the last decade plus been actually building for that generation, which is the future consumers of both content and commerce, and the ability for really content to drive not only consumption based on interest, but also on action that will come up from that. And that is, a very different way in which today people are driven to make decisions around what they spend on. Right? We always used to believe that, content used to, and I think this point came up on spirituality, organic, and all that. So, content that is hitting this generation and the creators of this generation. So, when we've looked at content, we've actually looked at it across the spectrum. Of course, theatrical, long form. We've recently co-produced a film with Steven Spielberg's daughter. But because she's a Gen Z creator and a first-time movie creator, her directorial debut, we've been able to bring that in. To your point, Boman, is to influence that little thought process on what will a horror film in India look like. It's a horror film. Just to give you an example on how you can look at India also as a market for, that kind of production. But I think more importantly, the forms of content that we see today, beyond OTT, like regional music, for example. I mean, again, young creators, we've created the largest ecosystem in India for, say, Bhojpuri or Haryanvi. Most people wouldn't even know is the fifth most spoken language on YouTube globally. And music is, of course, a great form of content. The shift of content, whether it's short form, it's long form, it's now 30-second stories, and the different ways in narration is happening. I still believe the biggest growth is going to come in interactive content, and video gaming is where we believe we've seen a huge spurt. So when we started, there were less than 80 million what you call video gamers in India. Today, there's a 500 million. Right? We are still less than 1% of a 200 billion global industry, which is much larger than all forms of content put together, and particularly where people are spending time. I think what Shekhar's point was, where is a person spending time, which is enabling them to influence both the entertainment as well as, a large part of the decision making. And where India can export, where we had themes and all, what we've been able to do is, create the world's largest cricket game, simulated cricket. And cricket is now going to the Olympics, cricket is going into, many other areas. And we find that about 500 million consumers who are playing simulated cricket, learning it, the larger opportunity lies in the top form of content. The esports players, today esports is the third most watched form of content, in India. So when we are fighting for mind share, we are fighting for theater movies, we are fighting for short form content, we're fighting for gaming, we're fighting for sports content.
Made in India partners.
Sports content is huge content, right? Absolutely true.
My last in the row finalist is actually from Spain and an independent filmmaker. So she would have her own take on Asu. What kind of content is making its space, like Mr. Irani mentioned about the Korean content on the global stage, and what?
Thank you so much. So, in my case, what we're doing right now, that's why I'm here, that I'm from Spain, from Madrid, is we're making the first co-production between India and Spain. So, we think, I'm making the co-production with Bobby. I think that, we know that in Spain, we love India. We're similar kind of culture. We love dance, we love music, no? So,
Spicy food.
we love spicy food, no? Yeah. So, and I know that in India, like Spain, no, like Europe. So we are making this first co-production because we want to build that bridge between India and Spain, between India and Europe, between India and South America, with a Spanish-speaking language, because this is a huge market as you are here in Asia. So we believe that the stories that travel, as Bobby mentioned, that and we're working on it, they're local stories, but they're based on global themes as emotions, as love, as relationships, as you mentioned, other things that nowadays, thanks to the social media, thanks to the broadcaster, thanks to the platform, we have access to all kind of content. So we're working on that kind of stories that they are local, but that can travel. So that's why we're making this first co-production, because you from India, you came many times to shoot in Spain, but we never worked like together in cinema. So we also in Spain, love theater. We like theater movies. We like a different kind of content. So this is, I think, a very important project for you as Indian, for us as Spaniards, because it's the first time that we work together on a global content, but based on India, but based on Spain. So I think the crew here to find the story, the correct story of, as you mentioned, all of you know, that can travel over the world, but it's based on our culture and on the themes that we're all interested on, as music, as you said, as e-games, as sports. So there are many kind of different themes. So that's what we're working on. And I think I hope this is the first movie of many working between India, Spain, or India and, Europe.
Ladies and gentlemen, my last round of questions to each of them, and then probably you can have a shot. Thank you, Mr. Advani. There's a lot of debate that is going on. I asked Shekhar also that question. I've asked a lot of very senior Bollywood personalities about that, about the corporatization that is hitting the industry. Do you think corporatization, at least, forget about the Indian side of it, at least will help take Indian content? You say, let's say, this Irani says they call them movies. Indian movies abroad, will it make it easier? Has it made it easier in going forward, like studios like BioRep, etc.? We have a massive, at least muscle, every kind of muscle, financial muscle, intellectual muscle. Will it make it easier to take the content abroad like that, unlike the struggle of an individual producer? Or it's going to dampen it? How do you?
So I'll just take 2 seconds to just tell you a story of David Fincher. He made a film called Panic Room, and he made a movie called Panic Room, and he made a film called Zodiac. And somebody asked him that how can somebody who make a movie like Panic Room make a film like Zodiac? And he says that's exactly what it is. Panic Room is a movie. The Zodiac is a film. We make films, right? And I think the more we call it content, the more it is we are going down a slippery slope. And that's the first thing that the corporate that we work with. We work with a lot of corporates. I think that the first thing that they are now slowly realizing that it's not content. We are here to make films, right? It's not consumer. It's an audience. That's very important. And the more we forget that, we've already lost the battle, right? We've already lost the battle. Now let's talk about the corporatization. It has to happen. We are being corporatized everywhere, in every sphere, right? Whether it's technology, whether it's housing, whether it is FMCG, everything, right? So why not films?
Whether it's real estate and
Everywhere, right? Everywhere. So I think this is being very lazy for a filmmaker to turn around and say the corporates don't mind, right? When a director would go to say Rajsa or to Yash Chopra or to B.R. Chopra, you had to still explain your vision to them, right? You should make them buy into what it was, right? In the sense, so that's not changed. I don't know. They have better visiting cards, right? I think that's the only thing that's changed. That
what about the resources? An individual producer probably will never have the kind of resources that a studio can muscle up.
Yes, absolutely. And therefore, more and more studios should start backing individual producers. It's very important.
Freelan, more corporatization.
Yeah, no harm. No harm. No harm at all. In fact, my script is the movie that is having its Asia premiere tomorrow. It's called The Mehta Boys. It's thanks to the corporate who supported it. And when they said, who are you planning to cast? I said, read the script. And they read the script. Say, now who are you planning to cast? Who's the leading man? I said, the script is the leading man. And I think if you're armed, so what he's saying is wonderful. There are lots of young people out there with great ideas. My point is, it's not about a great idea, because you can forget about the idea in 20 minutes once the film is done. 20 minutes. It's about a great screenplay. You can have a great idea and a terrible screenplay. You can have a great concept and you can have a great situation and a terrible. So I'm going back to what I said in the first round, is we talk about, having markets, having an whatever production, traveling. It doesn't matter. You first have to start from ground level up. Train writers, big time. So that DNA is so, the mechanics in the head is so fantastic that they free themselves to let creativity take over. But if the DNA of script writing mechanics is not in place, then you'll have shapeless structure. And that's where films fail, because you're talking about attention, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. We don't care about that attention as long as you can keep them glued to the story, or even 2.5 hours if the structure is good. So we got to teach youngsters structure, theme, story, character, leitmotifs, many things like that. But that seems to be a very thin part of our conversation and narrative.
Mr. Bedi?
So this question on corporatization,
I have no particular stand on it. No, I advise that what I'm saying is that in the conversations of the producer,
yeah, it just means being incorporated. All of us are now as small and as big companies. Does it feel more money? The studio system has existed in America now for a few decades. No problem. It is a system, and independent cinema is a system, and independent cinema will find its space. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that. I think all of us try to find money for our films, and what Boman has said, a lot of what you said just reads so many bells in my head, because at the end of the day, our focus is only on the 100 pages that comes out. Those 100 pages are corporate, those 100 pages are start, those 100 pages are everything. And once they're there, everything else has a good chance of falling into place. It's a good story, it has to be well told. So I don't think either technology or corporatization or anything is going to help make better movies. I think, I mean, if we can,
you mean to say that individual creativity will continue to rule supreme?
has to. Even this previous sessions here about AI. No, AI is regurgitated thought. It's just done far more efficiently, far more speedily. But it's not a substitute for original thought.
Mr. Nayani, I mean, you are the technology man. Corporates and technology are closely wedded together. I mean, I have nothing against either of them. Actually, I'm fine with both of them. But fact is that a lot of people, particularly the seniors in Bollywood, do begrudge that the individual producer has been edged out. They may not begrudge so much that the corporates have taken over, but overarchingly, of the content production, and Nikkhil has a very strong dislike for that word. I'll happy continue to do that other than movies. But what's it good for?
No, I think when we talk of corporatization, we talk of new forms of content or whatever platform, new platforms. I think at the core of it, it is about the growth of India and India's impact on the world through its media and entertainment sector. So if we are looking at that very well in category, I think this makes has been Bollywood has always been our soft power. Absolutely. So if you see CII has taken a big agenda of what India at 100, when we talk of a 2047 vision, what does media and entertainment look like from India, for India, and for the world? When we take that aspect, I think it's a no-brainer that you'll find a lot more stakeholders coming into this sector. They might come from corporate, they might come from the creative side. But at the end of the day, as what Nikkhil, Boman all said, it is empowering that individual idea, the writer, the creative talent.
Anna, last word to the lady.
So, and I completely agree with what they're saying. And this is very, I mean, not explained, but normally when you're on a panel, you have some different opinions. No, but I completely agree with what they're saying because as a producer, and I'm coming from a family that dedicated on cinema and creation, the most important thing, first of all, for any content is the script. It's the idea, first the idea and then the script. And then we can use all the tools that we have nowadays, that like the big technology, the ER platforms, etc., etc. But the most important from the very, very beginning is the script. So I think we have to push to create good scripts, to find good stories, and then we can use all the things that we have nowadays. We have a lot of things, internet, social media, technology, but also film festivals, markets, and all these kind of things that they're pushing and they're making the ideas big. and big. But the most important thing is to teach the new generations to write good scripts, to find good stories, to find the story that they can engage with the audience all over the world. And that's of course not easy, but I think it is our responsibility and also our goal as a producers and as a content creators.
Yeah, I know, right? Very rarely do you find in a large panel so much of unanimity, particularly a large panel of creative people. I hope Nikhil agrees with that. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to an end for this panel discussion. You have any questions? Kindly short and crisp.